Following the process of denormalization in the correct way normally leads to data structures which are known as star schemas. Star schemas are very common in data warehouses and in the analysis of data model because they are very easy to browse and to understand. In order to understand why a star schema is important, take a look at the data structure of the customer address in the AdventureWorks database. You can see in this data model that there are really many tables, and believe it or not, all these tables are needed just to represent the address of a customer. These highly normalized data models normally happens when you start loading data from an OLTP database. If you look at the data model, you can see that you start with a customer, then a customer is a person is a business entity. Then business entities can have many addresses, and each address has a specific type. Finally, an address has specific details like the address line and belongs to a specific state, province, and finally to a country region. If you think about trying to denormalize this data model just by using DAX, it will be a nightmare. And to be honest, even trying to build a correct denormalized data model using SQL is far from being easy. For this reason, professionals all over the world started to build already denormalized data structures following the technique of star schemas. If you have the option of loading data from the data warehouse, life will be much easier. Because the data warehouse is a data model that some professional has prepared for you, where data is already prepared for querying. It's already cleansed, denormalized, many columns are already computed, and if your data comes from different sources, they are already integrated into a single database. So it is the dream of any Power Pivot user. Data warehouses are organized into two different kinds of tables, which are fact table and dimensions. A fact is considered something which is measured. For example, you sold a product. Generally speaking, we can say that fact table contain numbers, and these numbers will be aggregated to produce interesting values. Dimensions, on the other hand, do not contain numbers. They contain qualitative information about facts. For example, a fact table tells you that you sold a product, but does not tell you what is the color of the product, or what is the customer who bought the product, where that customer lived, and so on. All the information that you need to use to slice data are normally contained in dimensions. So we can say that fact tables contain numbers and dimensions contain names and strings. The content of a fact table goes in the value area of a pivot table, while the content of dimension goes either on rows or columns. Now, if you think that your database contains only facts and dimension, you can organize fact table and dimension in such a way that they resemble a star. This structure is called a star schema. In the picture you see that putting the sales in the middle and all dimension around it, the structure somewhat resembles a star. Star schema have some unique characteristics which are very useful. First of all, because there is no relationship between dimensions, the only kind of relationship is a many-to-one relationship starting from the fact table and reaching dimensions. This makes it very easy to build the Power Pivot data model and follow it. I now want to show you how easy it is to load data if you have a data warehouse with a star schema available. In Power Pivot, you start loading from SQL Server, then we provide as usual the server name and the database name to connect to the data warehouse. And when you click Next, you can easily select from a list of tables. In the list of the tables inside the data warehouse, it is now easy to discover the difference between dimensions and fact tables, just because in a classical data warehouse, dimension starts with dim and fact table starts with fact. You can start selecting fact internet sales as the main table. And because you know that dimensions have a relationship with the fact table, you can use select related tables that will select all dimensions which have a relationship with the fact table. Clicking on Finish is enough to make Power Pivot start loading all the tables and recreate the complete chain of relationships for you. You can easily see that in the diagram view. The diagram view of a star schema is very easy to browse. Of course, we need to zoom out a bit in order to recognize the shape, but you can see in this picture the same star schema you have seen in the previous slide. The fact table is in the middle and all around there are dimensions. The same simplicity happens if you create a new pivot table, because the data model has already been created and you see all the dimensions, you see customer with all the attributes of a customer already computed in the data warehouse. And that happens for all dimensions. You can take, for example, the English education, and then from fact internet sales, where you know there are numbers to aggregate, you can take the sales amount and start browsing your data immediately. So this is just to explain that if you have a data warehouse available, the creation of Power Pivot data model and the analysis of data is much simplified. If on the other hand you have a standard database and you need to create everything by yourself, then life is much harder, because the process of denormalizing correctly a data model is not an easy task.